So, you're thinking of making a move to Scottsdale. In this video, we're going to be chatting about the pros and cons of living in Scottsdale so you can see if making a move to this city in the desert is right for you and your lifestyle. You're going to want to stick around to the end because some of these pros and cons on this list just might surprise you, and we're going to be getting after that right now. If this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything about living in Scottsdale or the greater Phoenix, Arizona area, then you're going to want to like and subscribe and tap that bell for notifications so that you can be the first to know about everything going on with the current market in Scottsdale and Phoenix. My name is Julie Allen. I'm with Relocate to Scottsdale AZ. We get calls every day from people just like you. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 9 months, feel free to reach out as all of our contact information is in the description box below. We would be happy to help you make a smooth move to Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, let's take a closer look at those pros and cons. Let's start off with those pros. So we can't talk about living in Scottsdale or anywhere else in the Phoenix Metro without first talking about the amazing weather. So have you heard the phrase, you never have to shovel sunshine? Well, if you lived here, this would probably be your mantra, especially if you're moving from, or if you have friends and family that live in a colder climate like in the Northeast, which is actually where I come from, New Jersey originally. When I moved out here, I was over the snow, the cold, the gray days. So with over 300 sunny days a year, it's hard not to love the climate here, especially during the winter. And if you're like me, then you might take a little bit of joy of rubbing it in the faces of those who are maybe a little less fortunate to not live here. So sorry, not sorry. While most of the country is dealing with snow and cold, we're enjoying temperatures somewhere in the 70s and 80s. Your blood might thin out a bit, and perfect for outdoor activities, whether that's hiking, golfing, hanging out by the pool. And something just hits different about hanging out by the pool with an iced tea or a beer or margarita, whatever your choice, sometime during February. Now, the summers are hot, and spoiler alert, you're going to see this again in the cons section, but for the rest of the year, the weather here is just absolutely unbeatable. So next, we're going to talk about luxury amenities. So Scottsdale as a brand is synonymous with luxury, and you'll notice that everywhere throughout the city. So whether it's high-end shopping at the Fashion Square Mall, or you going out to dinner at a place like Mastro's or Nobu, spending time at one of our world-class resorts and spas like the Venetian or the Omni Monte Lucia, which is a personal favorite of mine, or going golfing, which I am not a golfer, there's definitely no shortage of upscale experiences. And it's a city where you can truly enjoy the finer things in life, and that lifestyle is a major reason why people choose to live here. And a little bit about me, before I moved to Scottsdale, I worked in the resort industry and really had what you would call a dream job, living where people go on vacation. If you live here, you really have an excellent quality and caliber of amenities in your own backyard. Depending on your budget, your preferences, you really could be living the dream every day. Your dream might be different than mine, but I think most people would agree that kind of having all of these things all around you in your backyard is not so bad. If you're a big outdoors person, maybe you can tell that I am not a huge outdoor person. I try and avoid the sun a little bit. But if you're an outdoor enthusiast, Scottsdale is a dream come true. We've got access to tons of hiking trails. So Camelback Mountain, the McDowell Sonoran Preserve, tons of trails, ones that I haven't even heard about, and of course the best golf courses in the country. We've got public and private courses, so it just depends what you're looking for. And if you're into biking or jogging or just enjoy like a sunset walk, there's definitely no shortage of ways to get outside and stay active. And I can't promise it, but pretty much every time that I go out on a hike, you'll find a lot of really friendly people on the trails saying good morning or waving at you. If you're not really a morning person like me, maybe you want to have your sunglasses on, or maybe you're listening to something. But thanks to the weather, you can do this most of the year. Probably would avoid it during the summer. Maybe that's another spoiler for some more things to come in this video. So in addition to all of that, Scottsdale is often ranked as one of the safest cities in the US. And that's a pretty big deal for families, retirees, anyone looking for kind of peace of mind where they're going to live. I'll share with you a little personal story. So when my boyfriend first visited Scottsdale, coming from a city in the Northeast, one thing that he mentioned that stood out to him was that he really didn't notice that many police cars during his first few weeks. So there is most definitely a presence, but I can say that in my opinion, definitely a place where neighbors look out for one another, they're mindful of the neighborhood. So you kind of have a nice small town feel. Of course, it's going to depend on your neighborhood. Something you should, kind of look into if you're looking for a home out here, kind of get a feel for it. But you'll notice that it's just most places throughout Scottsdale, beautifully landscaped streets, clean parks, and just an overall sense of pride in our community, and the kind of place where you can feel good about walking around in your neighborhood, walking around on your own. So, of course, be safe, but safer place, in my opinion. Then last on the list for now, and there's so many, it took me a while to kind of narrow this down, is the variety of housing options in Scottsdale. So Scottsdale has something for everyone when it comes to housing, and pretty much for every budget. So you can find things like luxurious golf course homes, in gated communities, stylish condos, little fixer-upper home, something near Old Town, something further north, homes in the mountains, sprawling ranches, or if you're just looking for something simple, you can certainly find a lock-and-leave condo or townhome, which could be great for first-time buyers, family that's downsizing, or maybe even our winter visitors just looking for a perfect little winter escape to snowbird. And you'll find the old saying, location, 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 is really spot on in Scottsdale, with most parts of Scottsdale having easy access to shopping, dining, and entertainment. So really, whatever kind of home you're looking for, there's plenty of variety and options for most budgets. So now we've made it to the cons section. For every yin, there is a yang. So let's see what the cons about living in Scottsdale. I kind of alluded to this earlier on, and this is going to be the first one to match with the first pro that we had, which is the intense summer heat. So let's talk about that. So we already talked about how you never have to shovel sunshine. This is probably something that you'll be sharing with others when you're here during the winter, but you'll probably be hearing this from your neighbors while you're here during the summer, if you are here during the summer. And you might just tell it to yourself occasionally during the summer to get through it. You're probably going to start getting familiar with another phrase, which is it's a dry heat, also is an oven. So it's no secret that summers in Scottsdale are hot. Temperatures can reach easily 110 degrees Fahrenheit or more. Just this summer, I think we had the longest stretch. I think it was over 100 days. Maybe it was over 110 in a row, but we're still here. While it is a dry heat, it can definitely be intense and take a little bit of getting used to. So most people, I would say, probably stay indoors during the hottest parts of the day over the summer. And you may find yourself actually being both an early bird and a night owl if you like spending a lot of time outdoors. Goes without saying, but good air conditioning is a must. So there is no choice there. You need it. And then, of course, just having some shaded areas, ceiling fans, there's ways to cope with it. But on the plus side, if you are here during the summer, it is a great time to explore nearby areas at a higher elevation. So just within a few hours drive, you can head north to places like Flagstaff, Prescott, Sedona, and Show Low, just to name a couple. And if you're staying in town over the summer, so locals can probably enjoy some of the best deals ever at hotels, golf courses, and more seasonal businesses. I know that I get a ton of alerts and emails and promos of great things on offer for everyone who's still here in town. And I usually find myself here in town most of the summer anyway, so I like to enjoy those things myself. So definitely something to keep in mind if you're thinking about moving here is that summer heat. So what's next on the cons list is that it is a higher cost of living. So living in Scottsdale is not cheap. It's not necessarily cheap. And housing costs here are higher than the national average, and luxury amenities can add on to that expense. So that being said, you're paying for quality. So things like a safe community, great schools, and a high standard of living. And some of the expenses you might anticipate in some other markets might surprise you here, which actually are on the lower side. So there is a bit of a silver lining here. So things like taxes and insurance. And I can't quote numbers, but I can tell you that I've had clients from places like New York or California or Colorado or Washington, just some example states and probably pretty representative of typical places where people move from. And when we tell them the taxes on home they might be considering, they usually laugh or they ask, is that per month versus per year? So our taxes are a lot more modest compared to some other states. And when it comes to homeowners insurance, in the Phoenix metro at least, now I can't speak for all parts of Arizona because you have places that are in more woodland or that are more prone to fires. But if you consider the Phoenix metro versus some places in markets like Florida or California, or some places that are more prone or inclined to kind of certain natural disasters, it tends to be more favorable. And if you're on a tight budget, but you still want to make the Phoenix metro your home or your second home, there are nearby cities that might be a little bit more affordable than Scottsdale, and maybe put your goals in reach to be able to live in one of those places, and you don't have to sacrifice all of the beautiful and convenient amenities nearby. So each of the cities in Phoenix and the surrounding suburbs, it's got a little bit of a different flavor as far as what kind of local businesses, proximity to amenities, housing prices and types. So if you are thinking maybe Scottsdale is a little bit out of budget, or you'd like to consider a more economical route to being able to spend all of your time or some of your time in the Phoenix metro, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to share with you my thoughts and 2 cents and just what the local inventory is looking like. Next on the cons list, unfortunately, is a limited public transportation system. So if you are coming from a city that has a subway system or a bus system, you are not going to find that here. Now, that might change in the future. We do have a rail line that runs between Phoenix and Mesa, and I know that in a perfect world, there would be more expansion of that. I don't know if it's in the plans, so something for me to look at later. But most residents around here rely on their own cars to get around. So if you are moving here, owning a car, also with very good air conditioning, is a necessity. On the flip side of that, silver lining to this, the Phoenix metro spans a pretty significant area, and a lot of residents, depends on what you're still classifying as Phoenix. But we are equipped with a pretty large and growing highway loop. So we've got the 101, the 202, the 303. To my knowledge, there is no such thing as the 404, but who knows what the future holds. So that system is pretty efficient and makes it pretty easy to get around. And like any big city, we've also got Uber and Lyft, and we've got Waymo. So I don't know if you live in a smaller town, you may not have seen these, but maybe they are in your city if you're coming from a big city. But they're driverless vehicles, so it's pretty cool to see it, very futuristic. And I believe that Waymo is, or at least was at one point, here based in Phoenix. I believe they are. So I'll have to check that after. And then, of course, the downtowns of some areas, like at least in downtown Scottsdale, you'll see things like motorized scooters, rentable bikes, and then also things like Segway tours and golf cart taxis. But those not really used for kind of public transportation, but more so for a specific tour that you're taking. If you've made it with me this far, here comes one that I don't think anybody particularly loves in any area that they're living in, or I should say you either love them or you hate them. If you haven't guessed what it is just yet, that is HOAs and housing restrictions, which are prevalent here in Scottsdale and the Phoenix metro, more significantly than I would say some other areas of the country. At least I can speak from coming from the Northeast that this was not really a thing for me growing up. And I believe that in some other kind of more established cities, not more established cities, older cities, we are state number 48. So we are one of the younger ones in the country. But places like Washington and Colorado, I feel like you have less HOAs, less housing restrictions. But many of the neighborhoods in Scottsdale are part of HOAs. And while they help maintain property values and amenities, if you're not familiar with one, they also come with fees and rules. That neighbor sometimes who is going to come and knock on your door if your trash can is out more than a few minutes past the curfew time, or things of that nature, or come out and like measure your grass with a ruler. Hopefully you don't have that person in the HOA that you may be living in, but I've heard stories and been in this business a little while to kind of have heard some stories about HOAs for good or bad. And over the last couple of years, during the pandemic and following it, actually, we've had some HOAs that have started imposing more restrictive covenants on short-term rentals, so aka Airbnbs, and pretty popular business model out here, or at least it has been, and what you can do with your property. So if that is something that's important to you, or you're thinking of how can I rent out my property in the future, either to a long-term tenant or a short-term tenant, that is something that you want to consider, that you may have some restrictions in place. If you're looking at a place like a condo complex, there may be some more restrictions, like the type and size of pets or number of pets that you can have in a particular complex, or obviously things like you can't go and paint your condo like electric green or something like that. So there are pros and cons to an HOA. Some people love them, some people hate them. I can say, giving this a little kind of sunny side, silver lining to this point, is that a lot of HOAs, especially for condos and townhomes, may have some inclusions that are really a benefit to the homeowner, like something like roof repair or roof replacement, or include water, sewer, trash. And some HOAs still include even more than that, and they may include all of your utility usage, as well as a bunch of amenities like a fitness center, pool or pools, multiple pools, spas, tennis courts, pickleball courts. So it's not so bad. You just need to be aware of the rules and regulations so that you don't find a neighbor who is looking to get you fined. And then last but not least, one of the cons are the tourism crowds. In Scottsdale, our peak season is January through March, so coinciding with the coldest months of the year. And Scottsdale is super popular as a tourist destination, and it can get crowded during peak season, so also snowbird season, as we call it. Restaurants, attractions, golf courses might be busier than usual. It might be a challenge to secure a tee time or a reservation, so it could be frustrating for residents. But on the flip side, these are the prime months to be out here in Scottsdale. There's so much, I can't really think of any other place in the US that really compares to what we offer during those months, besides the perfect weather. So the crowds are here for a good reason. Good weather is just a backdrop for some of the events that we have, which is the Barrett-Jackson Luxury Car Show, spring training for all the baseball fans, the Phoenix Waste Management or WM Golf Open, which is just crazy and a scene, and the Arabian Horse Show, and a bunch of other events too. These are just kind of the biggest ones that I can think of. All of these, by the way, are taking place in Scottsdale proper, the exception of spring training, which is spread out throughout the Phoenix area, but we still have 2 stadium venues in Scottsdale, so Salt River Fields and then in Old Town Scottsdale. So out of all these pros and cons, which do you think is the best part of living in Scottsdale? And what would be the worst part? And these are just scratching the surface, so I know that there is so much more that I can share, but what else do you think should have made this list or should be on the next list? Comment below and be sure to subscribe to be in the know about everything you need to know to relocate to Scottsdale AZ, and thanks for watching.